Hi everyone, Mr. Companion here. Today we're going to be taking a look at Earth Science Lab number 11. So I'm going to start off, I'll read through this real quick with you. We're going to look at some rock samples. So even if you don't actually have the rock samples in front of you, you can now do this lab. So it says here, as you now know, rocks are composed of minerals or a combination of minerals. Rocks are categorized into types based on the way in which they form. Igneous rocks form as molten, mineral-rich material cools, or you might say freezes, as it rises towards the Earth's surface. Igneous rocks are classified based on two main characteristics. That's mineral composition and mineral grain size, also known as texture. These characteristics in turn signify a particular environment of formation. Herein lies the key. If you know the rock, you know the past environment. So remember, rocks form the sentences and paragraphs of the Earth's language. It's very poetic. Using your senses and the scheme for igneous rock identification found in your reference tables, you will be able to first classify, then identify the environment of formation of a variety of different igneous rocks. So here's your procedure. Basically what you're going to be doing is you're going to be looking at two things. Decision number one is the color, and decision number two is the texture. So for color, you're going to start off, is it light? Is it intermediate, like 50-50? Is it dark? Or is it mafic or ultra-mafic, in which case that would mean green. Next up is decision number two, the texture. Is it glassy? So there's like no visible crystals. Fine, crystals smaller than 1 millimeter, which would be like sand-sized particles. Coarse, which is between 1 and 10 millimeters. Or very coarse, which is extremely large, 10 millimeters or larger, which you will not find in any of these specimens. All right. Next up, we're looking at the environment of formation. Continental stuff is on the left, intermediate's in the middle, oceanic is to the right, and mantle, that would be to the extreme far right. So I provided some steps for you here. Step one, determine the texture. Step two, determine the composition. And step three, use your reference table and some other terms in here to assist you with identification. So here is Earth Science Reference Table, page 6, bottom. What I've done is I've also superimposed where continental, intermediate, oceanic, and mantle would be found. Another small reading on igneous rocks. And then we've got our actual data table that we're going to be filling out. So let's start off with rock number 1. Color on this guy. Well, I would say that it's pretty obvious that it's about 50% black, 50% white. Now the crystal size does look a little bit small, but I would definitely say it's larger than sand is. It's easily visible, the crystal size. So in this case, I would say coarse. So for color, we're going to say intermediate because it's about half and half. For the texture, we're going to say coarse. And now we got to figure out the rock name, right? So using just these two things, we could figure this out. So I'm going to pull up another copy just so I don't have to flip back and forth. All right, and if you look here, intermediate and coarse, well, I know intermediate would be somewhere in the middle. So that gives us a couple choices: diorite, andesite, vesicular andesite, pumice, or obsidian. And we're looking at a coarse texture, so if we come across, it can only be diorite. But having the name isn't the whole story. We also have to figure out whether it was intrusive or extrusive. Now, for these crystals to grow to a large enough state where they're visible like that, what you're really looking at is that it would have to cool over a long period of time, usually deep underground. So in this case, it would be diorite, and if you move to the left, intrusive, also known as plutonic. So we'll write that down. Next is the environment. What environment did it form in? Well, if it's in the middle, it would be intermediate. So not really continental, not really oceanic. I guess in either environment you may see it. But there you go. That was number one. So number one we've done together in whole. Number 2, let's take a look at it. This one, it kind of looks very uniform, but as I rotate it in the light, you could see all these distinct crystals, and they're all relatively larger in size. That being the case, we're going to say that the color would be dark. The texture on this one would be coarse as well. And let's figure out the rock's name. So coming here, we're looking at coarse. And we're on the mafic side. We're on the darker side, right? So it's going to be one of these guys. It could be gabbro. It could be dye-based barely, right? So you can see that. But the crystal size is pretty big, so I'm going to go with gabbro. Is it intrusive or extrusive? Once again, if it's large enough crystals to be considered coarse, in that case it would be intrusive. What environment did it form in? Well, if we go back to our chart here, we could see that gabbro would be oceanic. So this would be something we would find underneath the ocean floor. Pretty simple. So I'm going to go through the rest of these guys, and I am not going to give you the direct answers. You're going to be able to figure out what it is, if I can fit in the camera, what it is based on the characteristics that you can visualize. So that's better, I think. Not that you want to look at me. Number 3. All right, so here's number 3. Mostly light in color. I could see some dark ones. I could see some light ones. The crystals are definitely large enough to be considered coarse. So that was number 3. Pause the video right after each time I show you one of these, just so you have enough opportunity to fill them in. Number 4. Definitely, again, coarse, large crystals. And I would say this is relatively light in color as well. 5. It's got a tinge of red to it, definitely on the lighter side, but those crystals are definitely a bit smaller. 6. Crystals are pretty decently sized, maybe a little on the smaller side, but I can definitely see some larger ones, bigger than a millimeter. All right, so that was number 6. 7. Color on this guy I would definitely say is somewhere towards the middle, or like intermediate. It's not light, it's not dark. I know I do have some visible crystals, but for the most part it's this very fine texture, small crystals. 8, very fine crystals, right? Fine crystals. No gas holes, nothing weird like that. Very dark. 9, once again, no gas holes or anything. Very light for the most part, but definitely small crystals. 10, we're looking at pretty coarse crystals in this case. They're all pretty big, distinguishable. I would say that this is on the lighter side as well. Here's another one, relatively light in color again. I have some visible crystals, pretty big ones. Here's number 12. For the most part, it's fine looking. I do see a few big glints of larger crystals. You're going to have to use your judgment on this one. Definitely on the darker side. This is a tricky one. This is number 13. It's dark in color, yet it's felsic. It's pretty light for its size. It's pretty low density. So I would look at my chart on this one in detail. Definitely looks like a big lump of glass. Next up, I've got this dark reddish colored one. Lots of little gas holes. Guess you can figure out who that is. Next up for number 15, a light colored one. Again, lots of little gas holes. Feels like it weighs almost nothing. It's almost like styrofoam. And our very last one is number 16. Number 16, for the most part, is fine crystals, although I do see a couple pretty big ones in there. Once again, I'll let you make the judgment on that. Now, this sheet, at least for the 2023 school year, I only made 14 boxes. I'm sorry. You're going to have to add an additional 2 rows at the bottom, or you could just write them in that space provided. On the back, got a few questions. That is it, my friends. If you have any questions or would like to hang out with me and get this done in person, tutoring is on Wednesdays for the 2023 school year, and tutoring runs from 2:30 p.m. till 3:30. I hope this was helpful, and see you soon. Bye.